All right. Who has watched this over the weekend since it released on August 5th? Straight to streaming service Hulu. It's weird. Yeah, like, why did it go straight to the streaming service? I don't know. It's strange. It should have went to theaters. I definitely would have went to watch it because I'm a huge Predator fan. Love the franchise. This one takes a different approach. Instead of progressing the story further along, through the years, we go all the way back to the 1700s, where the focus is on the main character, Naru. She's a warrior in the Comanche tribe, and well, she's not exactly a warrior yet, but anyways, she sees this thing out there killing bears, lifting it over its head and whatnot, as you see in the trailer, and it's just insane. This movie is pretty good. Something else to note of this is, if you haven't watched it yet and you go on there on Hulu, there's two options to watch this. There's an English version and then a Comanche version, which, okay, I can dig that. I watched the English version first. I will watch the Comanche version to see if it immerses me further into the movie. And man, I can't praise this movie enough. And other people are giving it spectacular reviews, praising it and everything else. I do not have one bad thing to say about this movie. Everything's pretty practical. Well, besides, hunting a big-ass alien. There's, for those fans of the franchise, there's some cool stuff in this that links it to the previous movies, which I will talk about in a spoiler section, because if you're watching this video before watching the movie, shame on you. What is wrong with you? Go watch the movie first and then come back and listen to what I have to say about the spoilers, because it's pretty crazy. Okay, this is your chance. Spoilers are ahead, so if you haven't watched this film yet, go do it and then come back and see what I have to say about the most obvious thing in this movie, and that is the flintlock. Yeah. So, for those of you that have watched the previous films, at the end of Predator 2, Narrigan receives a flintlock from, I think his name is called Grayback, from what I've read, from one of the Predators at the end of the movie. They give him a flintlock. So all these years, everybody's like, oh man, where'd that flintlock come from? Now, over the years, people has tried to tell the story of this flintlock. Yes, if you're a bigger fan of the franchise, you know that they've told this story in the comic books. A predator was fighting a pirate crew, and then he got the flintlock off of one of the pirates. Well, now, since this film is out, I guess that comic book story is no longer canon, as now it appears in this movie that Naru gets it from one of the French fur trappers. So, with that being said, how do the Predators get the flintlock? Well, there is something else that takes place in this movie. It's not a post-credit scene like you're used to normally, like in the MCU movies, and a bunch of other movies are doing it now. Instead, there's no post-credit scene, but instead, you know how like after a lot of movies they animate, there's an animated end credit sequence that highlights, the producers, directors, the actors and actresses and whatnot. So they do an animated end credit sequence, but this time they're doing it as, how Indian tribes would make records of events and other stuff, like paintings and stuff like that, except this time it's animated, and it's animated about the whole movie you just watched. Except at the very end of that sequence, you see Naru standing there with the war chief staff amongst her tribe, you know, and then the chief is standing there as well. And then dark clouds come overhead, and then boom, out pops a predator ship. And that's how it ends. You're like, oh, what? So what happens next? I don't know. It sets it up for a sequel, obviously, and hopefully we get one. Hopefully they greenlight this, because I'd like to know what happens next. So, yeah. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. And if you haven't watched it, why are you listening to the spoilers anyways? And listening to a nerd just ramble on. But, yeah. Go watch this film. It is awesome. I'm going to watch it again. I've actually watched it twice already. So, yeah. Yeah. Go watch it. And that's it. That's it.